The text for the message this morning is from Matthew's Gospel, the 23rd chapter, and there's a copy on the song sheets of this, and this is taken from the Message translation. Don't always read from this, or often, as a matter of fact, but I like this translation because it's kind of subtle, like a falling safe, you know. It's kind of in-your-face sort of translation. Now, Jesus turned to address his disciples, along with the crowd that had gathered with them. The religion scholars and the Pharisees are competent teachers of God's law, he said. You won't go wrong in following their teachings on Moses, but be careful about following them. They talk a good line, but they don't live it. They don't take it into their hearts and live it out in their behavior. It's all spit and polish veneer. Instead of giving you God's law as food and drink by which you can banquet on God, they package it in bundles of rules, loading you down like pack animals. They seem to take pleasure in watching you stagger under these loads and wouldn't think of lifting a finger to help. Their lives are perpetual fashion shows, embroidered prayer shawls one day and flowery prayers the next. They love to sit at the head table at church dinners, basking in the most prominent positions, preening in the radiance of public flattery, receiving honorary degrees and getting called doctor and reverend. Don't let people do that to you, put you on a pedestal like that. You all have a single teacher, and you all are classmates. Don't set people up as experts over your life, letting them tell you what to do. Save that authority for God. Let him tell you what to do. No one else should carry the title of Father. You have only one Father, and he's in heaven. And don't let people maneuver you into taking charge of them. There is only one life leader for you and them, Christ. Do you want to stand out? Then step down. Be a servant. If you puff yourself up, you'll get the wind knocked out of you. But if you're content to simply be yourself, your life will count for plenty. Here ends the gospel. Sometimes you read the Message translation, and I think for most of us, there's no need to run to a commentary or to read from many experts what the message means, because he makes it pretty clean and pretty clear in those readings. I have two stories to tell you this morning about Dorothy Day. Dorothy Day was the founder of the Catholic worker movement. It was largely something set up in urban areas to help the very poor. And it's kind of a takeoff on Jane Addams and the settlement houses that Jane Addams founded. A very old idea, but is, by the way, coming back in a lot of places. Church folks, especially religious organizations especially, are realizing that centers for people who are poor need to be multi-contact kinds of centers. It's not just a place to give out food, but people who need medical care need some advice there, and people who have all kinds of social issue problems, or even problems with employment, need to be able to go to a place where caring people can help them make contacts and find their way back into society, and to find a way to earn enough to make themselves happy again. Here's one of the stories. A reporter came to interview Dorothy Day at her office. He could see she was talking to a man who was either drunk or mentally ill. Time passed, and the reporter grew impatient. Dorothy finally turned and said, "Are you waiting to speak to one of us?" Obviously, Dorothy did not think that she was more important than the person she was with. This is an example of service through respect. And here is another. One day a woman came in and donated a diamond ring to the worker. We all wondered what Dorothy would do with it. She could have one of us take it down to a diamond exchange and sell it. It would certainly fetch a month's worth of beans. That afternoon, Dorothy gave the diamond ring to an old woman who lived alone and often came to us for meals. That ring would have paid her rent for a better part of a year, someone protested. And Dorothy replied that the woman had her dignity. She could sell it if she liked and spend the money for rent or a trip to the Bahamas or keep the ring to admire. Dorothy said, "Do you suppose God created diamonds only for the rich?" I have to say that these two stories speak directly to me, following from the gospel lesson we read this morning, when Jesus even uses the word as translated, don't be like those reverends. I wonder if they also speak to you. When the question is asked of the reporter, do you wish to speak to me? I have to confess that if there was a reporter who came in to near my office and was standing waiting, and I was talking to someone, any one of you or anyone, a stranger who'd come in to talk to me, I would think he wanted to talk to me. I mean, there wouldn't be any doubt in my mind that this reporter showed up to talk to me. Although the status is not what it used to be and what some of you remember, or as what you like to be. By the way, I once applied for a church job and didn't get it because they wanted a minister who could go in and talk to the mayor of this very small city, and the mayor would sit up and listen. And they didn't think I was the kind of person who would do that. I didn't have the reputation or the status, and the man that they hired actually had been one time an editor at Time magazine. Now, do you think when he went in to talk to the mayor listened? Do you think there's any minister, priest, rabbi, Oman who would go into a city in America and get the immediate attention? If you could prove that you had a couple of 100,000 votes behind you, that might happen. But just on the basis of your religious authority, that wouldn't happen at all. The status as a minister is always as a servant, the last, the humble. I have to confess to you that I don't like being around exalted people, and I'm not comfortable with the word servant either. The word servant in our society has a whole different meaning. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but when I came back from the Navy, I was working for a caterer on the weekends, and the caterer had a big party in Wilmette, Illinois, along the lakefront, where the big mansions are, big, huge homes. Senator Percy, the Republican senator from Illinois, lived right next door, as a matter of fact, to where this party was. And we were catering this meal, and it was around a pool, and there were all kinds of very wealthy people there, and it was a big wedding, and it was a fantastic thing. And being the waiter, the servant at this party, I often heard, "Oh boy." I was walking around with trays of hors d'oeuvres. "Oh boy." Those of you who don't know me don't know how that's funny that would be. For somebody to point their finger at me and snap their fingers and say, "Oh boy," because the blood rose up in my head immediately. My ears probably were glowing when I heard this. But of course, I was making a lot of money for this gig, and but I was seething. And the last straw was really when an ensign, who, those of you who are not in the Navy, an ensign is an officer but lower than an enlisted man. I mean, an ensign is practically the most ignorant human being in the Navy. And although, because they have a college degree, they've been foisted into this uniform with all the gold on it, and eventually they grow into the job. Am I right, Ken? Ken knows this intimately. And this one ensign looked at me. Now, I just finished 2 years of active duty, and says, "Oh boy." I couldn't stand it. I just kept walking. And he just yelled louder, "Oh boy." So I went I kind of got myself together, then went back out and finished the job. But although I was supposed to work the following weekend too, I said to the folks, "No. It's a wonderful pay and you're very nice people, but I can't stand the job."